What I remember of Poland is very little. I was born in 1937, but the war broke out in 1939, as we all know. But the day I remember, which was probably the worst day for us in Poland, was 10th of February 1940. That was the day when the Russians came, 2, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning, gave you 2 or 3 hours to pack, whatever age you were, ended up on sleighs and taken to the station, to the cattle trucks. That's what they were. Now that is the worst day. And then, vaguely what I remember, I don't know how long it took to get there, to Siberia, but a lot of people perished before they even got to the station. Temperature at that stage was -43. So those so-called cattle trucks, I think they were made for 20, 30 people. They were packed like sardines. Women like you would be sitting there because of the ice, couldn't get their hair off in the morning, you know, because that's how it was. On these cattle trucks, they got a coal stove in the middle. You're sitting on a whatever thing on top, and there was a youngster, similar age to me probably, you know, this train stopped like that. They're not passenger train, this cattle truck stopped. He didn't hold on. He fell down onto the rock, killed himself. And then we ended up in Siberia. Well, if I remember, 1.7 million of us were displaced from the eastern part of Europe to Siberia. And as far as Siberia is concerned, the little I remember is when my mother died there. I remember the fowls walking over her. My brother was just over 1 year old, he passed away. There was 4 of us in the family, my mother and my sister. She was the second eldest, she passed away before we got to Siberia. So my sister, my youngest brother and my mother passed away in Siberia. My father went to the army, and that's the last time I've seen him up to that stage. As I said, 1.7 million people were displaced. In that period, in June, July of 1941, 700,000 perished. So you can imagine, not through being shot, through sickness and all that, people were dying, just thrown out of the trucks and that. So imagine 16, 18 months, 700,000 perished out of 1.7 million. My sister, I remember, she was in Siberia. I was walking through, I don't know where we were, still in Poland. She was sick, she was lying in a bed, and I just went to the only picture walking around. I never forgot, purple, what have you. Never forgot lying there, and I went to say, oh, she's there, which I probably knew. She passed away a day later, passed away. She was the second eldest. My brother was the eldest. She was second, I'm third, and my other one was fourth. But I remember that instance. I remember in patches quite a few things. I even remember in Siberia, you mentioned that stupid thing. I never forget, those type of wallets that used to close like that. And I dreamt, obviously I dreamt then, I had money. And I put it in a wallet, and I put it under my pillow. Never forget that in Siberia, when I get up, first of all, my hand goes under the pillow, no wallet. So I gave my brother, you know, the treatment, you know, what he used, you know, be talking Polish, it's kind of, I don't know what you're talking about, we're talking about. I said, Jan, you've stolen my money. If you don't give it back, I'm going to speak to your mother and she'll put you in your place. My father wasn't there. No, but I don't know what you're talking about. And you cut a long story short, I realized later on, yes, Jan, it's all right. All is forgiven. I just realized I dreamt about it. Forget it. You know, I never forgot that stupid little thing. Money, I picked the right guy, though, I might tell you. And I came out. I never forgotten that. That's in Siberia. But what happened, you probably know the history, when Hitler attacked Russia against the agreement in 1941. So in June, July of 1941, we were given so-called amnesty, so we could leave. So the various army places were set up where we didn't have cell phones, anything like that. So even people going there, they passed away. A lot of them died through sicknesses, through health and what have you. So in 1941, June, July, we ended up eventually, we ended up going through Caspian Sea to Persia. It is in Persia, which is Iran now, various countries were approached, how many orphans can they take? Now, under Jan Smuts, he took 500 of us. There were 300 boys, roughly 200 girls. Now, that part obviously I remember. So, Persia I don't remember that much. But we came on a ship called Dunera. And I remember we were in a convoy. There were submarines next to us. I remember that. But I was so young. And the only time I was afraid during the war, because I was too young to know what else was going on. In fact, I remember asking my mother, who sits on those aeroplanes? Because they looked so, you couldn't relate somebody sitting there. I was that young. And even one of the things I found amazing, in a radiogram, you know how big they were, this guy talking and said, who the hell is sitting inside there? You know, we were so young you couldn't relate. Just give you an idea how young I was, which was to my advantage because the war didn't really affect me that much, as opposed to a lot of people were 5, 6, 7 years older than me. You know, just to give you an idea at that stage. So anyway, the only time I was afraid was on that ship. A couple of people passed away. They, you know, wrapped it up in white sheets, said a little prayer, slid it down to the sea. And I'm standing at the deck. The boat was also packed like sardines, and you see those sharks coming. That's the only time I remember during the war that I was young, shivering almost, you know, on the stage. It's the only time during the war that really I remember that I was afraid when this had actually happened. Not that I was worried it could happen to me, but see things happening. So we ended up in Dunera to Port Elizabeth. From there we came by train to Oudtshoorn. And there we were for 4 years, 1943 to 1947. For whatever reason, we had Polish teachers. We couldn't speak a word of English. Going to the movies, like watching silent movies, obviously, you know, that type of thing. So we were there for 4 years. Everything was in Polish. The masses in Polish, well, the masses were in Latin, really, which I got so used to. I found English masses didn't seem right initially. You get used to everything. That masses in Latin, to me, appealed the most. But anyway, so yes, Polish teachers, both classes, different stage. And I've got a photograph here when we went to Oudtshoorn, 70 years after, you know, initially, after 50 years, if I remember, meaning 1993, we started going to Oudtshoorn every 5 years, and we had these reunions. And so it was very interesting, every 5 years, reunions. And then I've got photo study, the barracks, you haven't been there, exactly the same. The numbers are exactly the same. You know, nothing's changed. And I've got a photo here where I'm standing there 70 years later. In other words, 2013. And I hate to tell you this, I'll show you the photo. I was wearing the same jersey as telling you this photo. It just shows you how good the jersey is, not the barracks. But the barracks are the same numbers. They're used for different purposes. The army is still there, the camp and everything. Every time we used to go there, you go there, obviously, as other people. So the Oudtshoorn, well, I remember Oudtshoorn, it was, you know, we had our classes, games and this, and normal fighting that goes on between boys. It's standard, but it was fine, you know. No, I was quite a naughty guy in school myself. I wasn't an angel. Yeah, I wasn't. What a stupid thing, really. I used to do, I'll never forget, one of the biggest guys in Salesian school, Willemse, he used to copy from me a little bit, so he owes me. I don't know why, but I had this shoe tags, 5/8, which is 16 millimeter, shoe tags, sharp right to the end, white bar. I never forget, I liked that as Willemse. One of the guys in front there went to see the teacher. I said, go and put a tag on his tag. While he got up, I put it on his as well. And he saw, you can imagine. He shouted out, you know, he looked at me and said. Anyway, the big thing is this guy came back from a teacher 2 minutes later, and he shouted, he's got up. Who did that? Teacher wanted. And this Phillips, the biggest guy in school, got into big trouble through me. And I thought it was the funniest thing out. So he was in trouble, and this type of things I used to like doing, you know. But I mean, it sounds funny, but I mean, you can imagine. Yeah. The interesting part was watching Battle of Costello and the Westerns, but you don't understand anything what's going on. But it's interesting, you can work it out yourself. So going to the movies was strange, but for whatever reason, they must have thought the war was going to end early and you go back where you came from, but it didn't materialize. Hence the reason we were learning Polish. Difficult part was the first year going to English school. I started instead at 4. You got to learn English and Afrikaans. English, you know, and I never forget, nothing to brag about, the first year exam in Afrikaans I had to do. I don't know how many pages there was. It took me 5 minutes at the most. I looked at it. I thought, whatever I do, I'm going to make a fool of myself. All I put across each page, in English, Happy Christmas, and I gave the paper in. And I had to repeat it in March the next year. And you learn, it gave you those exam papers, how many marks you get for letter writing, for this and this. So believe it or not, next year in March, I passed, but not with flying colors. You passed because you whatever cheated. So that was, imagine the first year, you can't speak English, Afrikaans, and you got to do the exam and all the other things. It's the first year. The following year, you sort of, what break it. Never forgotten that my Afrikaans took 5 minutes to do. The teacher says, you finished? Yes, I'm finished, whatever. It was so funny. I think it's funny, but I mean, it's one of those things. If I had to do it in Afrikaans, I would have made a fool of myself. You know, you're battling in English, never mind Afrikaans. So that was that. 1947, we left the Oudtshoorn camp. I was in the youngest groups. We came to Salesian School here in Lansdowne. You don't know Claremont. We were there for standard 4 and 5, and then Salesian Institute in Cape Town for 3 years, for the next 3 years. And even when we were there were many times people that took you for holiday to their places. Now in Salesian Cape Town, I remember a fellow named Colombo. They were fishing people, his parents in Light Lake, yeah, on the west coast. So I used to go for holiday with them. As far as school is concerned, Salesian, after that, after Salesian school, you're on your own. You have to find your own job, you have to find your whatever. Eventually, you even have to find your own wife. Can you believe it? It's not, you don't get any privileges, you see. But anyway, so that is just by and by. So, yeah. So that's what happened. And you survive, you know. There's always somebody worse off than you, you know. It's the way to look at it. Always somebody worse off than you. Yeah. I think, I must be honest, you know, we think we were on our own, no parents. None of us that I know of, you could become a scholar, you could be on drugs, you could be anything, but it didn't happen. You know, so they're all strong characters that get involved in any of that. When you think of it, that possibilities are there, you know. So, and some of them did well in business, that we know, and all that, but everybody had a different job. They had to find their own job, whatever they were. First time I met my father, just for interest's sake, I found him through the Red Cross. He was in Reading in England after the war. We corresponded. And that was a period, I think, under the government. If anybody had any relatives, any part of the world, even uncles, they would be paid for, they can go there. But I mean, my father himself, I said, my brother was older than me, he passed away but 20 odd years ago. He says, I said, Jan, he was a bit of a scatterbrain. My father had his problems. He's battling like everybody else after the war. You're not going anywhere, you know, what have you. So I was not interested in presenting, but we corresponded. Then he got married again, and he emigrated to Toronto in Canada. And first time I've seen him physically, I went over there in 1966. He was initially like a stranger to me, really. He married again, and I knew quite a few people. That one of the guys that often, like me, Eddie Zaszkiewicz, he was there. somebody persuaded to go and play soccer. He was quite a good soccer player. He played 2 games, got injured, and that was it. Professional soccer. So he was there, so we used to go around. So I was there for about 6 weeks into Toronto. First time I met my father, since I was 2 bricks high. And then he passed away 2 years later. I flew again, he had a heart attack. So he died when he was 58 or something, like that. He obviously trying to persuade me to stay and all that, you know, the usual type of thing. And so you just can't, your life has changed, what have you. So first time I've seen him when I was 29, in 1966. When we went on the internet, first of all, I didn't even have, my mother's photograph I didn't even have. My father was a different story. Didn't have any of that. And while we were there, it's one of the things, I never brought up the subject, talk about the war and all that, because, you know, he went through it, you know, the memory's not gonna do him any good. One of the things he didn't tell me, he had 2 sisters. Yeah, I knew nothing about it. Arising from all the information we got from this computer, both sisters, their kids, their grandchildren, all that came out of it. So my family tree grew from there to there. So we corresponded a little bit to what have you with a few of them. One couple, from the sister's side, they work in the Polish government in Algeria, and they were going to come here, but then COVID came around and they didn't make it. So we were going to see them and all that. But from my father, he never mentioned he had sisters. We were together all the time. He was a printer by trade, but he thought there was more money in the second-hand car business, so he became a second-hand car dealer. And I wouldn't recommend you buy a car from him, I might tell you. But anyway, so yes, he passed away. You know, so we were together, we came together all the time. You know, we were together. In fact, when we left school, we had 2 soccer teams. I was very much involved in soccer. I arranged all the games and everything. We used to play on Sunday league against various people, including Robben Island. We went a couple of times against the defense. So I used to arrange the games. We used to go there as well. So I used to play a lot of soccer, play for Greenpoint and all that, yeah. So that's how we were together for some time. And then, of course, we had 2 teams, and then eventually petered out Polish. So we still had 2 teams, but other people that were, soccer wasn't professional here. So people were very keen on playing. So it wasn't, so that's how we kept together quite a lot, through soccer, really. Probably in Cape Town now, as far as I know, there's only 4 of us. There was 4 of us. One fellow, I visit him every 2 weeks roughly. He's around the corner from where I stay. Jan Karpies. You may have heard of the name. He's got dementia. Another fellow, his best friend, right from the Oudtshoorn days, is Jan Panovic. He passed away just over 2 weeks ago. He had 2 or 3 heart attacks. He was Jan Panovic. He passed away. Another fellow, he's in Sun Valley. He's also got medical problems. So there was only really 3 of us that I know of. No, but I mean, we kept together for a very long time. Pico and Skipper, a lot of them passed away, but a lot of them very much so. Very much so. You know, we were together for a long time. But generally speaking, I don't know what Stefan Shevchik is the chairman. If he knows, I remember speaking to him once, but I don't think he even knows how many are left from 500. Are we about to take, I guess, under 20, 15 so? I mean, even the last reunion you see, Felix was there. The 2 or 3 with walking stick, 1 in a wheelchair. Are they still alive? You don't even know. 1 out of 4 passed away 2 weeks ago, yeah. There can't be more than 15, but we stuck together for a long time, you know. As I said earlier on, via soccer, playing soccer, things like that. And then you know each other, somebody's birthday, go to the party. Yeah, so you do stick around, you know. As I said, now there's only 3 of us left in Cape Town, for example. But there's got to be a beginning, there's got to be the end eventually, you know, that's how it goes.